After I finished Disco Elysium for the first time back in mid-2021, I fell into a sort of weird video game fatigue. Steam felt like a wasteland of missed opportunities and broken promises. Every game I played after Disco just felt lesser in some way. I couldn't scratch the itch that this game had left over every fibre of my being. So yes, you could say this game left a massive mark on me, a sort of rash, if you will, and no amount of your average store-bought first-person shooter game ointments or creams were going to clear it up. Okay, that's a terrible analogy, but you get the picture. I was starting to lose hope that no game or movie or novel would ever touch me in the same way that Disco Elysium did. A couple of months went by and I was rewatching season 1 of True Detective when I noticed some pretty glaring similarities to Disco Elysium. The severely troubled lead detective, the familiar yet uncanny setting, and it got me thinking, maybe there are things out there that will give me that same rush of adrenaline, or that same twinge of sadness that I so clearly and desperately crave. Maybe I will feel again. So if you love Disco Elysium as much as I do, here's some things I think you might like. Number 1. Kentucky Route Zero. Kentucky Route Zero is a point-and-click game by Cardboard Computer and was released episodically from 2013 to 2020. The narrative follows that of a truck driver named Conway and the strange people he meets as he tries to cross the mysterious Route Zero in Kentucky, as he's on his way to make a final delivery for the antique company that he works for. Fans of Disco, I think, will love the dialogue-driven gameplay mechanics, but it also has a super unique art design and just an all-round atmosphere that also feels unlike anything I've ever played before. I don't want to go too into the plot because, like Disco, a lot of the joy from playing this game comes from knowing not too much about it. You can play it on the Xbox Game Pass, on console, on the Switch, and if you have the Netflix app on your phone, you can even play it on there, though it's apparently very buggy, so be careful. Number 2. True Detective Season 1. Like I mentioned in the start, there are a lot of similarities to Disco Elysium and True Detective. Not so much with the story, but more the sort of tone and execution of the show. I'm quickly going to summarise the show now, so be warned, there will be some light spoilers. Constructed as a non-linear narrative, Season 1 focuses on homicide detectives Rust Cole and Martin Hart, played by Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, who 17 years prior were investigating the murder of a prostitute called Dora Lane in 1995. In present day, they have to revisit the investigation, along with several other unsolved crimes, and during this time, Hart's infidelity threatens his marriage to his wife, and Cole struggles to cope with his troubled past and crippling existential crisis. And in my opinion, Season 1 is just some of the best TV ever made. There is some seriously great cinematography, and all the actors, McConaughey and Harrelson in particular, just completely nail every scene that they're in. Most of the show is just listening to Russ say things like, "I believe human consciousness was a mistake," for the camera to pan over to Marty, who simply replies, "Oh." I mean, who doesn't want to watch that? It is a masterclass in tension. There's some really great visual world building, and it's got the strangest blues infused with stoner rock soundtrack. I can't recommend this show more. Watch it. Number 3. Planescape Torment. Hailed as being one of the greatest, if not the greatest, RPG of all time, it doesn't take long to see the influence Planescape Torment had on Disco Elysium. Like Elysium, the game is primarily story-driven, with combat not really being prominently featured at all. Our protagonist, known as the Nameless One, is an immortal man who forgets everything if killed. Sound like someone? Harry Dubois? Who tries to kill his memories and demons with drink? No? The game focuses on his journey through the city of Sigil and other planes as he tries to reclaim the memories of his previous lives and to discover why he was made immortal in the first place. I think out of all the games on this list, Torment maybe comes closest in terms of the game's emotional and psychological scope. And like Elysium, the level of detail feels more akin to a massive literary work than it does a video game. My favourite aspect of Torment is actually the Nameless One himself. At the time of release, December 1999, there really weren't many characters like him. Back then, RPG heroes were typically clean, predictable do-gooders. In Torment, our hero is a damaged, egocentric, and potentially selfish son of a bitch. Sound like someone? I think Torment helped establish more diverse stories and more diverse characters seen in video games. There wouldn't be Disco Elysium if it weren't for games like Planescape Torment. If you can, definitely give this game a go. Number 4. Inherent Vice. Probably one of Paul Thomas Anderson's weakest films and definitely one of my least favourite of his. Inherent Vice is on this list because holy shit, can you think of anyone better than Joaquin Phoenix to portray Harry Dubois in a live-action adaptation of Disco Elysium? The film follows Larry Doc Sportello, a stoner hippie private investigator in 1970. He is embroiled in the Los Angeles criminal underworld whilst investigating 3 crimes, all of which are interrelated by the disappearance of his ex-girlfriend and her new wealthy boyfriend. Now, you wouldn't think I'd need to sell this one too much, but do be warned, this film is a bit all over the place. I feel like it has a bit of an identity crisis. It seems to have a hard time blending comedy and drama, and the script and plotting is just a bit all over the place. But saying that, I do think it's worthy of a watch. There's some good performances, and it's a very good looking film. So if you're stuck for something to watch, maybe give it a go. I've decided to keep this list shorter and more concise than I originally intended because honestly, if you dig deep enough, you could find certain similarities in just about anything. Disco Elysium did a very special thing. It blended genres and styles in a way that I've never really seen before, particularly in a video game. This list is short, but hopefully you'll appreciate it nonetheless. Here are some honourable mentions though. The City and the City by China. I can't say that last name. I am currently reading this and oh boy. Next we have Fallout, released in 1997. I don't even need to say anything about this one. Go and play it now, I beg you. Also definitely check out Sea Power, formerly called British Sea Power. They did the soundtrack for Elysium and their music is just as beautiful when it's not played against Zaum's game. And finally, The Sacred and Terrible Air, the novel written by Robert Kurwitz, Disco Elysium's lead designer, has finally been translated into English. Thanks to a talented bunch of fans and translators, us English-speaking fans can now finally read the novel that kind of started Disco Elysium in a way. I have not read this yet, but I plan on reading it next, so when I do, should I do a video on it? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for your time. I'll see you around.